Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance, and today we're taking a different path, not one of power, not one of meta dominance, but one that goes deeper into what made this game what it is today, because today we return to heroes that once defined hero wars, alliance, heroes that carried fights, heroes that built strategies, heroes that created moments we still remember, but that today have lost their space in the meta. And let's make something very clear from the beginning, because this matters. This does not mean they are useless, this does not mean they cannot still work, and it definitely does not mean they have no value. What it means is much simpler and at the same time much harder to accept. The game evolved, the meta moved forward, new heroes arrived, new mechanics appeared, new synergies took over, and some of these legends were simply left behind. But being left behind does not mean being forgotten, because these are not just heroes, these are memories, these are the reasons many of us stayed in this game, the reasons we learned, tested, lost and won, and today we talk about them not with frustration, but with respect. And with hope. And we begin with one of the most iconic names in the history of this game, Kark. Or as many of us still call him, Bob. And if you've been playing for a long time you already know exactly what that name means, because Kark was not just strong, he was feared, he was one of those heroes that when you saw him on the battlefield you immediately knew that if you made one mistake, the fight was over. There was a time where his control into damage was something almost unmatched. He would lift enemies into the air, completely remove them from the fight, and then bring them down with devastating force, and if that wasn't enough, if you paired him with Kai, it became something even more special, because that synergy was pure perfection. Kark would lift them, Kai would follow with the tornado, keeping enemies suspended, extending the damage, extending the control. And in that moment the enemy had no answers, no reactions, no time to recover, and fights ended before they truly started. That interaction didn't disappear, it didn't suddenly become useless, but over time it became weaker, because the game introduced more control resistance, more survivability, more ways to break that chain, and slowly, without a single big change, Kark lost his place, not because he stopped being good, but because everything around him became better, faster, more efficient, and today our dear Bob still has his identity, still has his mechanics, but no longer has the same impact. No longer defines fights the way he once did, and that's why he stands here today as one of the clearest examples of a hero that deserves a rework, not to change who he is, but to bring him back into the game in a way that matches today's reality. And then we move to another name, another legend, another hero that for many players was the beginning of everything, Keira. And Keira is not just a hero, she is one of the faces of hero wars, one of those characters that instantly connects with players, because there was a time where Keira didn't just deal damage, she erased teams, her speed, her blades, the way she cut through enemies, it felt unstoppable, it felt like no matter what you placed in front of her, she would find a way through. She was everywhere, in KJS teams, in different variations of fart compositions, in aggressive builds that relied purely on damage and speed, and watching her perform was something that defined the experience of the game, those blades slicing through the battlefield, enemies falling one after another, it was simple, it was powerful, and it was effective. But once again, the game evolved, new heroes arrived, more control, more defensive mechanics, more sustain, more complexity, and suddenly that raw damage was no longer enough on its own, and when we look at Eternity today, we see a faction that has grown massively, new heroes, stronger kits, better synergy, relics that push performance to another level, and in that environment, Keira is no longer the center, not because she lacks damage, but because others now bring more complete packages, more consistency, more safety. And that's where the emotional part comes in, because Keira is one of those heroes that made people love the game. She represents a time where things were simpler, more direct, more explosive, and seeing her fade from the spotlight feels wrong, not because she should dominate forever, but because she deserves to evolve, she deserves to be part of the future, not just the past. And then we look at a different type of hero, not a damage dealer, not a frontline presence, but a support that has been part of so many compositions over the years. Jet is one of those heroes that you don't always notice immediately, but when he's not there, you feel it, because he amplifies everything, he supports, he enhances, he completes the system. He was a key part of progress setups, a core piece in KJS teams, a hero that didn't need to shine alone because his value came from making everyone else better. But today, with so many new supports, so many control options, so many different ways to build teams, Jet finds himself in a strange position, not weak, not irrelevant, but waiting for a moment where the meta shifts again, waiting for that small change, that small push that brings him back into relevance. And the truth is, he is not far from that moment. His kit still has value, his impact is still there, but accessibility, competition, and the speed of the current meta have pushed him aside, and maybe what he needs is not even a full rework, maybe it's just attention, maybe it's just a small adjustment, maybe it's just the right environment. And this is where everything connects, because this video is not about saying these heroes are done. It's not about saying they have no place, it's about recognizing that they were once essential, and that with the right direction, they can be again. Because we've seen it happen before, heroes that disappeared from the meta returning stronger, better, more adapted to the game's current state, and with the way Hero Wars is evolving, with new systems, new relics, new synergies constantly being introduced, there is always that possibility. There is always that moment where something changes, and suddenly a hero that was forgotten becomes relevant again, becomes powerful again, becomes part of the conversation again. And that is why this is not a sad ending, it's a pause, it's a transition, it's a moment between what was and what can still be. So Guardians, we leave you with this question, not just as players, but as part of this community: which of these heroes do you want to see return? Which one do you believe deserves that second chance? Which one would you build again the moment they receive that change? Because at the end of the day, this game is not just about power, it's about connection, it's about the journey, and these heroes are part of that journey. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and as always, salute and friendship.